Did you think when you first started all those years ago with Metro that you'd be with a 160 in your hangar and doing the things that you guys are currently doing?
No, and I think there's one kind of philosophy. We've never had a business plan, never had a budget, never had any. I've been blessed in my career to have an owner that trusted whatever we thought collectively would go, whatever I thought collectively would go. But I think back on that, and the whole growth of the company can be based on one statement. It's, what do you think if ... and just kind of run with that. We just keep through kind of the tough times and the competition. We just kind of keep paddling the boat, and it'll be okay.
Welcome to the Vertical MRO Podcast, brought to you by Vertical HeliCASTS and in partnership with Vertical Magazine. In this episode of the Vertical MRO Podcast, Howie Murray and I sit down with Milton Geltz, Managing Director of Metro Aviation, to reflect on his remarkable 50-year career. Milton began his journey in 1976 and has been with Metro since 1983, overseeing daily operations across flight, maintenance, completions, finance, sales, and marketing. A graduate of Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University with a degree in professional aviation management, Milton also holds an FAA airframe and power plant certificate and an FAA designated airworthiness representative for both maintenance and manufacturing. He was honored with the 2007 Aviation Maintenance Technician Award by the Helicopter Association International. During the conversation, Milton shares insights into the evolution of safety standards, the importance of training a skilled workforce, and how advanced data monitoring systems are transforming operational safety. We also have an opportunity to discuss key challenges like recruitment and retention and highlight Metro Aviation's ongoing commitment to excellence. Stay tuned for valuable insights into the future of rotorcraft maintenance and safety. Thank you to this episode's sponsors, Metro Aviation and Airbus. Hey, welcome to the Vertical MRO Podcast. I'm today's host, John Gray, and I have a really, really cool conversation in store for today. I don't think I've had this much experience in one room in one podcast ever. Our new co-host, who I want to introduce, who's been a previous guest on the Vertical MRO, Howie Murray. How you doing, sir?
Hey, I'm doing really well. Thank you very much.
Fresh out of the forest, the wildfires up in Canada?
Yeah, long couple of weeks, actually. There's a whole sub-story just in those 2 weeks.
I'd imagine every deployment you go on, every time you're out in the bush, there's some interesting stuff going on. It'll be fun to pick through that as we go.
Yeah, for sure.
And then Milton from Metro Aviation. He's somebody that has over 50 years or just over 50 years. Is that correct in the industry?
Actually, I got my A&P in September 50 years ago, so I'll be at 50 years plus A&P school in a month or so.
Wow. And so combined between the two of you, we're just shy of 100 years of experience, and I take some of that away from you guys, so I apologize for being the hole in the room, but it is an honor to be in here with you guys to hear about your experiences and to inspire the next generation and the current folks who are out there doing some good work. I don't usually do this, Milton, but I feel like given your experience, you've got a really unique experience. I want to read what I found to be your bio. So you began employment with Metro Aviation in 1983, and you hold the position of managing director. Milton's primary duties include overseeing day-to-day operations of flight operations, field maintenance, completions, finance, sales, and marketing. You hold a professional degree in aviation management from Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. You also hold an FAA airframe and power plant license, which you just talked about, coming on 50 years, which is really cool. You're an FAA designated airworthiness representative for both maintenance and manufacturing. That's something I'm really curious to hear about and kind of dig into. And you've worked in aviation maintenance since you began your career in 1976. Milton was awarded the 2007 Aviation Maintenance Technician Award by the Helicopter Association International. That's a lot to go through. It only took me a minute or so to read, but man, that's a 50-year span of time that we just breezed through. First off, congratulations for being in the industry for 50 years. That's crazy.
It is. It doesn't seem like that long, but it's been a very profitable and satisfying career, that's for sure.
Yeah. What you guys have built at Metro Aviation is a household name in the industry. You guys have done some amazing stuff. You guys support us. We're very thankful for that. supporting the MRO conference, which I'm excited to talk about. So yeah, just honored to be here with you and honored to hear your story. Before we get into kind of what you're doing at Metro, can you just take us back to how you got into aviation, kind of where you grew up, and a little bit about your background?
Sure, I'll try to be short as I can, but yeah, I grew up. I was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and graduated from Penn Hills High School back 100 years ago. I went to Penn State for about a year, and then actually the dollar pitchers of beers that named across the street from the school got the better on me. So that was the end of my college career at that point in time. And my uncle was a flyer. He always owned airplanes, flew sailplanes, and I went with him a lot when I was a teenager. Got me interested. And to be honest, it wasn't a really thought-driven career path, but I happened to be out at Allegheny County Airport one day, and I noticed that there was Pittsburgh Institute of Aeronautics on the field. I said, I wonder what that is. Went in and talked to the counselor and signed up, and the next week I was in A&P school. So it was not a very, it just, things played in line, like where I was at a particular point in time played a role in what my decision was to go forward in aviation. So I finished A&P school, and at the time at PHI, or at Pittsburgh Institute of Aeronautics, they had a Heller 5B. That was their rotorcraft training day. We had a day to talk about helicopters and a day that they tried to start this thing and run it. And they got this thing running, and I hid behind a pole. I didn't want anything to do with helicopters, nothing to do with helicopters.
Yeah, smart man.
Graduated there, went to work for Cumberland Airlines, worked for them. It was a regional airline in Cumberland, Maryland. Worked there for about 6 months. Actually took a pay cut to work for them from working at the tire center at JCPenney. So, but man, I figured there's something cool about this aviation thing and wanted to try it. About that time, I saw an ad for patrol helicopters paid $5.25 an hour in Lafayette, Louisiana. So I used my airline benefits to go down and apply at PHI and ended up driving down to PHI. Took a job there. At that time, they called themselves the largest helicopter training school in the world. It was quite an operation. I spent about a year and a half there, and got what I could out of them. It was a good experience, and I think you probably all remember Harold Summers. He was one of my upper managers at PHI at the time. So we had actually a personal relationship back then, and he was a great inspiration to me and a great inspiration to the industry for a lot of years. Left there, went back to Pittsburgh for about a year. That got tired of shoveling snow and came back south. Worked for a company called Commercial, or not commercial, it was commercial. It was Offshore Helicopters, the Bean for a little while. Bristow bought them. I moved on to Horizon Helicopters. Got fired over the radio. The company changed hands and went to Panther Pacific, went to Commercial Helicopters. The check started bouncing, and then I ended up at Metro Aviation. And my question to Mike Stanberry, who was still, as you know, the owner of Metro, along with his son and daughter, I just told him, I said, if the check's going to bounce, let me know so I don't put it in a bank. And if we're going to go out of business, let me know. And about 2 weeks later, he said, this might be the day. And he's not let me off the hook for the last 43 years. So, but he's been, that's how I got to Metro Aviation. And again, it's been a 43-year, very, very satisfying, very, very fruitful. I couldn't imagine being anywhere else and having any more satisfaction or career opportunities than I've had at Metro.
Yeah, you guys have not only developed a superior product, but the culture you developed at Metro. People always talk about how they've got a family culture, and I'll put family in air quotes because I think it's a good catchphrase. But visiting you guys, going through all the different shops in your facility, that's the one thing that employees kept talking about, is how they felt like they were part of the Metro family. So I feel like the culture you guys have developed there is one that's hard to develop and hard to replicate. So good job on that. That's something that is really, really difficult to do. But I want to go way back to, before you even went to college and look at your youth. When was it that you actually realized that you had some mechanical aptitude and you could work with your hands in a way that a lot of people can't?
Well, I had, my dad died when I was 14, so that was about the time I needed to start figuring out how to work on cars and take care of my own machines. And take care of the lawnmower and all those kind of things. So that was, it was out of necessity basically, but I always enjoyed hot rodding. And, if it was broke, it was that, to be honest with you, if anything is finished, okay, or done, I don't have much interest. I like things that need work, need put together, need fixed, need something done to, or something created, for that machine. That's my passion. If it's not broke, I'm not really interested in it. That's kind of where I went. And then again, I mentioned my uncle. I remember when I was a teenager, he'd take me to the sailport, and I rode in the back of a '63 split window Corvette with my cousin to the sailplane port, and actually flew sailplanes. I sold a sailplane, and that's to be honest, that's the only thing I ever enjoyed flying. Mike told me I had to learn how to fly 172 RV to chase spoke helicopters in the early days, and I didn't want to. I'm not a pilot. Man, like Clint Eastwood says, a man's got to know his limitations. I got lost everywhere I went, and I finally gave that up just to save myself and the company some money and time. But yeah, I think I've always enjoyed working with my hands. I really enjoy mechanical things. I like firearms just because of the mechanical parts of it and how they work. I mean, I was changing engines in my hot rod when I was 16 or 17 years old, and it just kind of flowed naturally into the aviation side. It's always been, I think that's just naturally, that's the direction I started, and that's the way I continued on going through AP school and through my career.
Howie, for you, was it similar, as a young man, realizing that you had this mechanical aptitude with vehicles and that type of thing?
Yeah, I was the prototypical kid holding a flashlight for dad while he worked on the car, and I learned slowly from there. Aim it over here where I'm working, not in my eyes. And I was actually very much into models, detailed model building. And I remember one Christmas when I was maybe 7 or 8 years old, my dad had bought me a little plastic model. It's actually quite a big plastic model of a Mack truck. And we opened it up, and he was so upset because there was no instructions in it. Somehow it had made it through QC and out the door, no instructions. And he went off. And I sat at the dining room table, and I put it together just by recognizing what looked like it connected to everything else. And by detailed, I mean, it had pistons and rods and the crankshaft and everything in the engine that you assembled and put together and put in the truck with all the suspension and the springs and the tie rods and everything. And I smacked it together. And it's always just come kind of natural to me, working with my hands and making things, repairing things. I used to repair stuff over at my grandma's house all the time.
Yeah, I think that's one thing in our culture that's changed. We've gone from a culture where we fix and repair things so that they last a little longer, and now with the consumer culture that we live in, I think most things are designed to be thrown away. A lot of the things are actually difficult to work on, right? Like you can't even get access to a lot of the mechanical parts or the parts that you need access to fix it, which is interesting. So I think the younger generation has a uphill battle to fight to even find that desire and that ability to work with their hands, to find.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, these days you almost need a computer science degree to work on your car engine instead of, back in the old days, you could adjust the timing with a stale Dorito in 5 minutes, right?
Yeah. Well, Milton, for you, as you approach your 50th anniversary as an AMP, and you talked about all the places that you worked over the course of your career up until Metro, and all the time you spent at Metro, but over the course of that career, looking backwards, are there a few things that kind of stand out as really impactful for you?
Again, I learned quite a bit at PHI. That was a good experience, and I don't know whether this is, and again, over those 50 years, and it kind of, I've thought about that a lot, and the way the industry's changed to get to a place where we got to think about how we get new blood involved. But, when I started at PHI, they were killing 10 people a month. I mean, 10 people were dying in helicopter accidents every month. You could count on it, but they were flying 80,000 passengers a month too. But, I grew up in the day, and it's kind of day when the 206s were slinging rotor blades, 205 blades were breaking, 212 blades were breaking, Allison engines were blowing up. I mean, it was not unusual. Plus, you threw in the pilot errors, weather accidents, things like that. I mean, you threw all that in, and it's like, I look back now and I wonder why in the heck did I stay in this business with all this going on? And I think it's important for today's generation. You move through that from those days to where the machines got better. Then we got the pilots better, got the machines, even better and more safe, more reliable and everything. And now we've kind of, I feel like we bypassed the maintenance guys quite a bit in the last 10 years. We focused on the machines, we focused on pilots, and we not really focused a lot on maintenance. So I'm glad to speak on this podcast to kind of share or look or collaborate on how we get mechanics better trained, better educated. And I'm not talking about sending to the manufacturer school. That just gets memorization. It's not breeding good mechanics. And you notice it still says AFP mechanic certificate on my license. Can't go to the technician side yet, but it's still mechanics, and we gotta make sure we grow some good mechanics that can work on these machines and have a good safety culture. But the path over 50 years has been very interesting. But you look at it, like I said, in those segments, and you have to look at it in those segments to understand where you are and what the challenges are for today.
Right.
How you mentioned about no instructions, man. We didn't have a lot of instructions back, 50 years ago to work on helicopters. I mean, it was pretty much by the seat of your pants, and we did.
Oh, I know. We're using on the 61. We're using the manuals, the original manuals from the 61. I mean, that there's updates and stuff where they've changed a paragraph or whatever. But we're literally looking at a PDF of a photocopied, mimeographed page from 50 years ago. And it can leave a little bit to the imagination sometimes.
It's not always bad, but we spend more time today teaching new mechanics how to navigate through the electronic publications from Airbus and Rolls-Royce, and all this more time invested in that than it is going back to the actual mechanical skills.
Yeah, absolutely. My time with Leonardo, their publications they're quite good, but the learning curve to get into them and figure out, okay, where am I supposed to look in all of this, can be quite daunting at the very beginning.
And when you reflect on that safety record you brought up, Milton, what's the catalyst you would say for that safety record to begin to improve? I know there was a lot of computerization was probably some of that as far as getting good data in and out. But what would you say was the catalyst that started to drive the industry to where we are today?
Thanks to our sponsor, Airbus. Airbus provides the most efficient helicopter solutions to its customers who serve, protect, and save lives and safely carry passengers in demanding environments. Its civil and military helicopters are flying all over the world, making missions possible. Visit airbus.com for more information.
Well, it's a great question. And, but again, back when the TT straps were failing in the 206s, there was, they found out you're designing things on a piece of paper, piece of Mylar with a pencil, and, having somebody without I'm not saying no computer or anything like that. It's just pen and paper to do the analysis. But, the manufacturing processes were pretty rude back then, pretty crude. The analytical skills back in the 70s or 60s, we're talking 60s, were not great. And I think the big change, what made aircraft more reliable was a greater emphasis on quality in production, okay, and understanding, learning from some of the failures was part of it, but a lot of it was just quality management in the production of the machines, which was sometimes based on just they did the best they could, but sometimes with just sloppy manufacturing. So that's part of it. But, today, fast forward to today, and again, even at Metro, when we did our first EMS, it was, okay, we'll cobble something out on the bench, see if it kind of fits in the helicopter, then we'll test it, and certify it. But today, we have 3D modeling, we model everything, we put everything in a model in the machine, make sure it fits, make sure the stress is done before we actually manufacture, and then manufacture. So that has changed quite a bit, but even with that, the new helicopters sometimes have some of the same issues that the older machines did. So that's kind of confusing at this point, why we can't get past some of the things that get over that hump to make the helicopter plenty reliable, but get over these early stage issues with manufacturing, with durability, with reliability. It's great. It's 100 times better it was 50 years ago, but we're still seeing some of the, why didn't you think of this? Why did we come up with this today and it's not solved? So that's just kind of the frustration today. We did the 169. We have an H-160 in the building. We got in last week. It's great machine, far more reliable, very highly, there's a lot of technology in the machine, but you still end up with a few things. You've got to scratch your head and wonder, well, how did this get by? How did this happen? But I think back in the day, so there's not a lot of capability or understanding by quality control and things like that has really moved the industry forward.
I have a theory on that.
You do?
I do. I think it would behoove the industry to have the young engineers, design engineers, come out to the field and work on a machine for a certain period of time, an apprenticeship, if you will, and learn what it is that they are designing and looking to build from a user standpoint, and to see it in action. I mean, the famous story of Igor Sikorsky coming out to visit Jack Erickson and take a look at the 64s when they first started logging, and Igor stands there for about 10 minutes watching the helicopter go up and down the hill pulling logs, and turns to Jack and goes, "You can't do that," and walked away. And yet they did. I mean, it was a very successful program, but there was a lot to learn from being in the field and actually putting the machine through its paces. And I don't think you get that from a computer sometimes.
I share that concern with you. It's too many guys sitting with in front of a computer and never being near a helicopter. And I have one quick story, if I can. I don't throw it out manufacturers, but I don't, they might like it, they may not, but they're true stories. We had one of the first 135s, Pratt & Whitney powered 135 on the country, and they had a terrible problem back in the early days with smoking, sooting out the tail boom. I mean, they looked like a B-52 sometimes when they took off. But so Pratt called us and they said, we have a solution. Okay, I said, okay, you can come down, we'll let you use the aircraft. You can use the aircraft to test out that solution. So a guy named Tom Baldwin, who still works for Pratt, he was a tech rep, he showed up. There were two engineers from Pratt & Whitney in Canada came. They came with their laptop, which was always concerning to me, being an old guy, that you need a laptop to work on a helicopter. These two engineers, they did their thing. We had a Eurocopter test pilot that showed up with his parachute, which was, okay, you're going to jump out of a helicopter. I'm not sure how far you're going to jump away from the helicopter to get out from the rotor blades, but that's his problem. But so they got done. The next day said, okay, we're ready to go fly. I said, I'm not flying. You guys are flying. What? We're flying? You're flying. And it turned out one engineer had never flown in a helicopter.
Wow.
Okay. The other guy never flew on an airplane until he flew to Shreveport, Louisiana from Canada. So you guys are sitting in that helicopter and going flying. And that laptop looked like it weighed 300 pounds sitting on that guy's lap. But that's kind of stuff you gotta you got the experience. You got to know what you're putting out there. So I share your theory and I share your thoughts. They got to get in the field. These guys got to understand what they're designing.
I feel like Metro has become so innovative. You guys have come up with so many solutions and unique ways to tackle problems. Do you find that some of the OEMs are coming to you guys and working with you collaboratively in what you're talking about?
Now you are going to get me in trouble. In some cases, we struggle mightily with the one-stop solution that Airbus is actually trying to push now. We are trying desperately to work with them on supporting them on some of their aftermarket STCs to speed the time to market for completions. I don't. That's a very hard question to answer. But
Okay.
we try to. We're actually moving more into proprietary. That's ours. We want to keep it on a pipe mode.
Yeah.
We have very low experience with Leonardo. Bell is, always been Bell. So mainly it's Airbus, Eurocopter stuff. In the old days, yes, we collaborated heavily, but the market emphasis from the European manufacturers has always been in Europe and the rest of the world, not really in the United States.
Yeah. Well, to your guys' point, I think anytime the manufacturers, doesn't matter what it is, collaborates with the end user, it's to the benefit of everybody. The maintainers, the users, everybody. So I think that's one thing that we can look at going forward and identify something that can get better. But looking back over the course of your career, Milton, again, what are some of the surprising changes that you've seen take place?
The avionics, the sophistication of the avionics and the ability, the increased sophistication and capability of machines and the avionics, autopilots, those kind of things have been miraculous. I mean, I remember back when Voran-C was the big deal in the Gulf of Mexico when you had a Voran, took 2 hours to program 10 waypoints in. It was, and you move from that to today, which is basically you're, as a pilot, you're a systems manager, in the newer machines. I think there's a lot more, and this is one thing that we are, I think, way ahead of manufacturers on and some other operators about the data monitoring and flight data management and monitoring systems that we're doing. That one entity, the Avalon company that Metro owns, has done more for us and more PHI as a user. A few other people in the country and around the world are getting on board, but the ability to mine the data off the machines. So, of course, the newer machines are easier to get that data. That has been the largest single, I think, product, technology, whatever you want to call it, that has moved us head and shoulders above the rest as far as understanding, and it started very simply. I got concerned because once the doors closed on the helicopter and the pilot disappeared, got on site, we didn't know if it came back, it came back. We didn't know anything. So there's a long story about that, but today with the data mining and the data monitoring, the analytical process we're going through, we have, reduced our risk margin down to, I think we can go another point or two, but there's not a moment from the time that helicopter starts to the time it lands that we don't understand how it's being operated, what the condition is. I'm not talking about hums. I mean, this is purely operation of the machine and the condition of the machine in normal operation. So I think that's probably the most satisfying, the biggest gain that we've got as an operator in the years that I've been doing this.
Yeah, outside of hums, can you talk about some of the tools you use to gather the data and how that data has actually improved the safety margin that you talk about?
Yes. I mean, this product, again, might be subject for a different time, but the Outerlink product, again, we started that. I was concerned about, how the machine was being operated. And again, that was in that segment of time where, especially the EMS industry, was wrecking a lot of machines. And, we're going through a pretty bleak time back in the 90s, and I basically went and I said, I'm tired of this. I went to Radio Shack. That's how long ago this was. And I got a home security system plugged it into a B105 to land an inverter on it, put 3 cameras. I take one on the glare shield, one over the pilot's shoulder, and one on the skids, and put a cassette recorder in this thing. And I told our director of mates, the director of operations, and chief pilot, said, go give each other a check ride. Just go do something, okay? And they came back. I said, how'd it go? Well, you didn't tell me to do it. You didn't tell me to do that. We didn't do that. And it's like they couldn't come up, and whatever they said was not what the recording showed. So again, we went through several generations of voice and video up to the today current system. On a EC-135, we'll record 800 labels off that machine. We can decode about 400 of those labels. So we know speed, altitude, engine condition, engine operation. We can monitor the engine performance. Everything goes on, and then the data mining will take that information from that flight and filter it through a algorithm that analyzes how the machine was being operated against what our requirements are and how the ship is being operated. So we've narrowed that. And actually the pilot staff, originally they kind of used that camera for a hat rack, but they figured out that this is not a bad thing. And they really embraced it. And then, if we find some occurrence that falls outside of what our requirements are, we have a team that can contact that pilot, say, hey, tell me about that flight. Most of them actually say, yeah, I thought I was going to get a call, and here's what happened, and that thing. That we have, and again, I could talk for hours on that particular product, but, and again, the sometimes with sophistication in the machines, with the FLI monitors and all that, they're not looking at everything that I think the pilots need to look at. So on the German machines, you have mass moments, you have torque exceedances, you have those kind of things that the pilot cannot, if he sees them, he's supposed to be flying a helicopter, he can't, see that and remember it and report it accurately. And I don't know how many motors we've saved, how many transmissions we've saved by analyzing that data at 60 hertz. Okay, you can't undervalue that. How much money? I couldn't tell you how much. It's not anything we can calculate, but that one product, that ability, and again, hums is great, but then you have to go back to the manufacturer to get the recording. You have to hire somebody to analyze it. This is everything we can control, or a customer can control on his own. But that FDM, process is invaluable to us.
So first question, are you coming up to Kelowna yourself for the conference?
Kelowna? I don't know anything about it.
Oh, well, you should come, because we need to meet. Because we got to talk. I could talk to you about what you just talked about for days. Yeah. That to me is such a useful tool that we should be using everywhere, especially on, if we can figure it out, on legacy aircraft like the 61 and the mediums and all of that. I think we don't do enough work as maintainers to really look at historical data on a machine's operation. We do power checks and we do trend monitoring, but every 2 weeks you go out and do a thing. And to me, that's just not enough. We need more. I won't take up any more time here, but certainly, Milton, I would love to talk to you afterwards about that, about what you've got there.
Be glad to. It's, I couldn't sleep. I sleep much better. I slept not knowing what I didn't know, but I sleep a whole lot better at nights knowing that if everything is being monitored. If something happens, we know what's happening. And we can watch. We get a caution warning. If he gets a caution warning, it shows up on our OCC, and we can watch and assist through that flight. We monitor fuel loads. We monitor. We do all that stuff. And again, it's just to make sure, we have an operation control, and that's the only way that I say we can control the operation, by knowing what happens in that helicopter every second. So, but it's worked out really well.
But not only is that mitigating risk, but it's also improving, I would imagine, your operational readiness.
It brought the maintenance. I'm positive. Again, it's hard to quantify, but there's no doubt that the mechanical condition and the wear and tear on the machines has gone way down. It's gone that's helped immensely. And the hums and the GPMS system, those are all great and wonderful, but it's not what FDM is. It's not that constant monitoring, live monitoring, and then being able to store and record and go back and retrain, the GPMS for hums. You can't, that's just a watch for something going bad. It doesn't tell you how to operate the helicopter better or improve the operation. It's just that's an alert.
Howie, for you guys, you kind of made reference that you're not utilizing these systems in the way that Milton described. Can you talk about some of the systems you might be using in your operations as far as, flight data monitoring or hums?
So I've worked on a wide variety of aircraft. Most of it is, legacy 60s, 70s era machines, mediums, the Bell mediums, 205, 212, 412 is a bit more modern, and the 61s and the 64s. I do have experience with the AW139, which is obviously a big leap ahead in technology involved, full-time onboard hums. But as Milton pointed out, the hum system is a warning system that triggers when something happens. And you can get into it and sort of go back through, the operation and watch what they've done. But it certainly doesn't let you watch what's happening now live. I don't know anyone I know there's companies out there that utilize an aftermarket legacy hum system installed on a bunch of aircraft that don't come with it from the factory. But I've had no experience, and I would love to have experience with the company that's doing that. I'm right on that borderline between shade tree mechanic and computer nerd. And to me, more data is always better, and however I can get it.
Yeah.
And if I could have a hum system on, for instance, if VIH had a hum system on their machines, I think we could do a lot to help improve the maintenance cycle and get more predictive in what's going on. Certainly the operation, it's very mature for what it is that we do. We firefight in the summer, and we do heli logging in the winter. And that helps a lot because we've got these two very known flight regimes that we operate in, and we get our money's worth out of the machine for sure. But I feel like there's still lots of room to mine data, and improve even further. And I don't personally have a lot of experience with that, but what Milton's talking about really I find very exciting.
Yeah, the data mining is really interesting. And Milton, I see you got something to throw in there, so I'll pass it off to you.
Yeah, just on that, the big thing, you put the equipment on, where people fall short or choose not to go forward is you have to have that FDM team behind that. You collect all the data you want, but if you're not willing to spend the money on the people and the data's the data. You have to have people that can mine that data, to put it in a format, to read the trends and things like that. And that's where a lot of the operators stop. They'll put something like this on and then stop there and then wait to use it in some kind of incident investigation. But there's no value to that equipment unless you're willing to put in the time or money and the people to do the analytic part. Now, we hired a guy from American Airlines to do just that. He was doing that for American Eagle, and he's running that analytics part right now and feeding that to the safety team. So,
Milton, have you seen I don't want to say an improvement, but an increased efficiency with the analyzing that data with AI algorithms and those things that exist are starting to come online today?
I am ignorant to AI. I'll just tell you that right now. They may be using that over there. I'm sure they're using some form of AI to coordinate that, and that's that's the magic behind the curtain when I'm not really sure. It happens. I love it. I don't care how it happens, but it happens.
Yeah. It is the magic behind the curtain. It's amazing how that's going to revolutionize things. I think we'll see some increased safety margins as a result of being able to
Yeah.
utilize the data in a more efficient way. I'm excited to see how that develops and how it impacts our community as we go forward. Thank you to our sponsor, Metro Aviation. Metro Aviation, the world's largest family-owned aeromedical operator, offers comprehensive aircraft services with 140 plus aircraft in over 25 states. The Completion Center installs medical and law enforcement kits and avionics, serving diverse aviation needs including offshore, utility, VIP, and corporate sectors. But I want to change gears for a bit. Milton, you earlier talked about the need to develop the next generation of our community, of our workforce. You guys at Metro have come up with some pretty innovative ways to recruit, both on the pilot side, on the maintainer side, and the technician side. Can you talk about your vision and how we as a community and as an industry kind of work in tackling this recruitment and retention issue that we've got?
I can try. Typically we're in kind of a no man's land in Shreveport, Louisiana for recruitment. There's just no source really. Air Force Base is not really much of a source for talent anymore since everything goes to depot. But we try real hard when we look at somebody that they may not have the aviation experience. Okay, but if I have the guy that's we have doing most of the engine work in the engine shop, he went to gunsmith school, so you look at that and say, okay, this guy knows how to do precision work, and look at him and make an evaluation on that person that you're going to hire based on his past, not that it's aviation, but does he have the skill? Does he like to put models of Mack trucks together? I mean, that kind of stuff, and then they fit in pretty well. It's a lot easier. Sometimes it's a shorter hill to climb when you have somebody with a good attitude and good abilities, not necessarily aviation, and working them into the aviation type quality control or work. The one thing that we will do, it's got pushed back a little bit with the tariff situation and things like that, but I want, we have the plans drawn. We might have talked about this when you're down here, but again, I mentioned early on that I think the maintenance side has not gotten the attention it needs as far as training. The pilot, since we have simulators, will do a pre-employment evaluation of a pilot in a simulator to see he can say he can fly, can he fly? We don't do that with mechanics. You look at a resume, an AP mechanic or something like that, or, well, he says he's a sheet metal guy. I trust he's the sheet metal guy and hire him. But we want to build a full maintenance training facility similar to what's in Dohnavur with live machines to actually not only do training, but also do the same type pre-employment. If a guy says he's a sheet metal man, here's a piece of sheet metal, here's a drawing, here's some tools, build me this piece to make sure that he, he can do it, but what is his skill level? Where will he slot into our organization? And there's some type, kind of make sure you know what this guy's capabilities are other than what you're reading on paper. Say, okay, we need to put him at the bottom, we can put him in the middle, we can put him up at the top. Same thing with a guy might say he's had 10 years experience on 135. Well, okay, there's a problem with aircraft. Show me how you would troubleshoot that and give me a repair solution. And then again, initial training, we went from 2 weeks to 1 week, 2 weeks. We're fixing to go to 3 weeks on the initial training. But I think that's going to expand once we get this facility built. That'll probably expand to maybe 4 weeks and then bring it back in after a period of time. And actually don't want to scare old time mechanics off, but, bring them, have a check ride. I mean, we have no check and balance on maintenance right now that says we put them out there, they do the paperwork, they do the mechanical work, the helicopter flies, and we think it's okay. Okay, we have to trust that it's okay. That to bring a mechanic back and say, okay, let me check your skills, on just like pilots did, and here's what we learned additionally. So that's probably going to happen after I'm not in this office anymore. But I think that's the way the industry, and THI used to do it. Some of the other companies, I'm not sure what some of their companies do. But I think as an operator, we have to take better control over that maintenance, training, oversight, and recurrency, training. I mean, it just has to happen. It has to happen.
Access to training is critical. We talk about ways to improve your career and to move from one position to the next. Training, networking, and education, I think, are the three things to me that make the most difference. And I think with the launch of the Vertical MRO conference, we're now designating a place for these folks to go and get that in one place. And I think traditionally, going back to what you're talking about, Milton, the maintainers have always been overlooked. You go to a conference and there might be one or two things of interest for those folks, very little training. There is some value in going because you're networking, but from an education and training standpoint, you're not getting a ton. So I think what we've done with the MRO conference is great, and look to build that, for the benefit of our community and for the folks that are doing the job. So kudos to you guys for developing the training center. I mean, that's super unique. Haven't heard of really anybody else doing what you're describing. Howie, is that something you've come across and something you've heard of in the past?
No, not really. I mean, up here in Canada, we've got our variety of colleges across Canada that train up the new folk to sort of apprentice level training, and they get their fair share of hands-on and all of that. But once they're ejected out into the industry, there's very little follow-up. It's you get the ones that can absorb and can take direction and are good, and you get the others that are more difficult to work with in that, some guys have hand skills and some guys don't. I think we need to institute a nationwide program asking farmers to have more kids.
Yeah.
Because they seem to do really well. You grow up fixing farm equipment, you're probably going to do okay, understanding the work required and the time required and having some good hand skills. But in terms of recurrent training, there is a lot of book learning recurrent training, right? That's what we get at the, you do your CRM, crew resource management, every couple of years, retraining, which is, it's valuable in a sense that we get reminded of all the things that we need to pay attention to, the dirty dozen and all of that, which is certainly applicable. Maybe I'll join Milton in the getting in trouble side of things, but I feel like those courses particularly would be beneficial for maybe upper management as well to attend, because they're a part of it. And we're all a part of it. Pilots, management, everybody, the accounting department, we're all part of it. Each of those dirty dozen applies to all of us. But in terms of hand skills and training or recurrent training, there's not much, if anything.
Yeah.
And interestingly, I know that we could be doing more. People have come up with amazing training aids for maintenance. There's a Sikorsky 61 skeleton that is built for maintenance training, and the instructor can fail different little components of it, and you can go and try to operate the machine and troubleshoot it and figure out what's gone wrong. Use a multimeter or tap at it or whatever it is that you have to do to figure it out, and you can go and do it. But it's a one-off, and it's not currently in service. And I feel like there's a fantastic opportunity to do that, to build one for a Bell Medium, to build it for the European machines, to really invest in maintenance training and troubleshooting, and not just rely on tribal knowledge and 30 years of, oh yeah, I saw that once.
Yeah.
The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and expect a different result. So there's got to be a change.
Yeah, absolutely.
Milton, is what Howie is describing, that skeleton, is that kind of what you guys envision in your training facility?
Yep. We already have a couple of 135s that we've taken out of service that are just waiting for a home to go do that. And again, the Europeans kind of go to overkill maybe on this, because you have to type rate the mechanics in the EASA, type rate on the airframes, the engines, and there's quite a long process with a test at the end to be type rated, and I don't really want to get that far out, but I think there is certainly a need for, again, this pre-hire, initial training, recurrent training thing that I'm talking about on site with the airframe that you fail, have cut away the gearboxes, a standalone drivetrain for the machine, to understand this. But we do the best we can before we send them out. We hope the experience they say they have on their resume is good, and then throw them into the ocean to see if they can swim. But it's quite concerning to us that slipped a little bit away, slipped out a little bit too far out from being addressed. But we are full hard on getting that going. But again, this tariff, not to put commercial things in here, but these tariffs is on us it's devastating. Nothing, everything that comes in through our door now getting as a 10%. It's just devastating, and it's very difficult for a company to try to recover from that additional cost. So
yeah, it's been a challenge for the industry as a whole. Hopefully that's something that disappears soon.
Yeah. I will say we do that up in Canada as well. We type rate for your AME license. If you want to go sign out a 61, you have to have a 61 course from the maintenance side of things. And that does involve hands-on and book learning, but it's a one-off thing. There's nothing recurrent about it.
I want to go back for a minute to something you said, Howie, which I love. You brought up how the farming industry supplies our industry with pilots and maintainers. That's something that I didn't realize until I started having these conversations on these different platforms and finding that whether you're a pilot or a maintainer, if you spent time on a farm, you're going to be successful in either one of those categories.
It's pretty true.
Yeah. The hand skills that you learn, operating machinery is huge on the pilot side. And then the troubleshooting things that you learn over the course of your time on a farm are huge on the maintenance side of things. Really interesting. And Milton, I'm curious for you, if you guys have seen that through all the employees that you see this trend where you find somebody who's spent time on a farm growing up, if that's translated into superior skills in the shop.
Not so much a farm. We're not in that area. But yeah, I mean, that's what you mentioned before. You find somebody with a skill that they've had in before Metro, whether it's gunsmithing, whether it's, some of the best avionics installers we've gotten have come from, AT&T, installers. I mean, and I want to say something, we have an A&P school here on the airport that we've only ever gotten one mechanic out of, and we got one that's in school there now. And it is dismal. I mean, it is dismal the experience they got. Same at Pittsburgh Institute of Aeronautics 50 years ago. There's nothing there that translates to current industry. I think how I mentioned it, they come out to do certain things and then it's on the job after that. But the other extreme, it's an extremely good school. It's called Turner University over in Marshall or Longview, about 30 miles from us. A 4-year degreed aviation maintenance. I did the pilot training also, but that's kind of the other side of the spectrum. When these guys get out of a 4-year degreed college, they're not willing to go to the line and start swinging wrenches. They're educated beyond that point. So there's not anything in the middle. We have to grow those people to be in the middle of those two extremes.
Yeah. Now that's interesting that you mentioned that school. How about Embry-Riddle? You were a graduate of Embry-Riddle yourself, which is the premier aviation school in the United States, possibly the world.
Well, I went, I got a degree. It was at the Barksdale campus, so we had one classroom, and I was the elder there, and, they took a lot of my credits. They gave you credit for A&P, IA, that me. I mean, sure. It was good, but kind of funny. They had a show and tell day, and everybody's supposed to bring something from what they're currently doing. And this guy brought in a tech generator, and I thought, holy shit, that's off B-52. It's the same one out of B-105. I said, I got these in stock, so if you need one. But, it was a good school. I think they did, again, I don't know what the Florida campus is or the other campuses, but I went to Barksdale and off-site campus. So that's a good school, a very good education, good safety, good law, a lot of good things came out of it, but it's not what I did was not a mechanic school. It was
Right.
full education, but not, I got tired of, I wanted to make sure that I had a 4-year degree at the end of my career. So.
Right.
Yeah, I've talked about that at length. I love a lot of the trade opportunities that exist, trade school opportunities that exist in the U.S. What I think is extra valuable is kind of what you described, Milton, with the school that not only gives you that trade skill, but also gets you a 4-year degree. We've seen a lot of folks who progress to maybe the middle stage of their career, and for whatever reason, whether they physically can't do the job anymore or don't want to do the job anymore, feel like they're stuck. You get an education and you've got this life skill now. You decide, hey, I don't want to do this anymore for whatever the reason is. It gives you another option, right? Something to go, I've got some other experience in this other thing. That's a whole nother conversation to debate the value of an education, right? But most jobs, or a lot of jobs, require a 4-year degree to get in the front door. So I think there's a lot of value in that. But to your point, Milton, there's got to be a middle ground too. It's a place where we can go and not go too heavy in one direction or the other, but kind of a nice mixture of the two. I love the topic of education, and really it boils down to recruitment. We're all looking for some unique ways to bring the next generation in. And I guess I got 2 more questions on your background, Milton, and I want to hear some of the stories on Metro. The first question, I'll start with you, and I like asking people what their favorite tools are, because people have some wild answers. A lot of people say flashlights, and I think it goes back to what you're talking about, Howie, with your dad, making you hold the light for him. Like, everyone's got some experience with the light, but yeah. Over the course of your 50-year A&P career, Milton, what would you say your favorite tool, your must-have tool is?
I could tell you what my least favorite tool is. They're all my favorites. When you need one, you need one. And I'm kind of I'll if I working on a car, more or things like that. If I have something to do, and it might be only one time, I'll buy the tool to do that one time. I don't care. Okay. But my least favorite tool, and I've done this for years, I got a hangar full of mechanics. If I walk by and I see them using an adjustable wrench, I will take that out of their hand, give them a $10 bill, and tell them to go buy the right tool. And I'll throw the adjustable wrench in the trash can. So that's my least favorite tool out of anything in anybody's toolbox.
That's hilarious.
Fair point.
Howie, how about you?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. I put this to myself the other day. If my garage was on fire and I could only rescue one thing out of it, what would I grab? I don't know. I'd have to grab all of it on a cart. I'm much the same. I am that guy as well. I will buy a tool to do one job that I will do once in 5 years, kind of thing, because I like tools. And they're all kind of cool in their own way. I don't know. That's a really good question. I've got my favorite tools. Like when we, as a contractor, bopping around, going from machine to machine, you have you try to minimize what you take, because you're always flying somewhere or traveling somewhere new, and nobody wants to bring a rolling cabinet with them. And so I've got a little bag of all my favorite little hand tools, and it's a mashup, because I've got Wera. I don't know if anyone's come across Wera yet, but they're German, I believe, or Austrian. They're very well made. They're very fancy. They're very expensive. Well, not too bad, actually. And they've got some really neat stuff. They've got this one kit that is a little stubby driver that takes screwdriver bits, and it takes a socket capability on it. It's got a row of sockets on it, but they're all 6-point. So I've replaced all the 6-point with my Snap-on 12-point, and that's in there, and my favorite screwdriver, and wire twisters, and my duck bills and cutters. I feel like my little kit is the perfect little kit.
The topic of go bags is interesting too. Everyone's kind of got their go-to go bag and what has to go in there. Yeah, always interested in hearing. Milton, I'll admit that question's come up a lot, and I haven't heard what you said. I think it's hilarious.
Yeah, I had back talking about tools back when the A-Stars started coming out, and the 365s, Air Special would include a metric tool set with each helicopter. So I still have, and of course they disappeared as soon as the helicopter hit the pad, but so I still have some of the, and they were snap-ons. I mean, you got a little toolbox like they give you for your 50-year award, with a bunch of snap-on wrenches in it, and I still have some of those wrenches.
That's cool. I'm sure those are auctionable items at this point,
Might be.
Well, the last question, I don't want to beat a dead horse with recruitment, but what advice do you have, Milton, for folks that are just starting their career in the aviation industry and in the maintenance industry? Thank you to our sponsor, Metro Aviation. Metro Aviation, the world's largest family-owned aeromedical operator, offers comprehensive aircraft services with 140 plus aircraft in over 25 states. The Completion Center installs medical and law enforcement kits and avionics, serving diverse aviation needs including offshore, utility, VIP, and corporate sectors.
I try to tell people now, I think the younger generation, of course, we fought the battle of they start and they want to make, $100 an hour right out of the chute. We focused a lot on, of course, the company, what we do, where we're hired, different areas of the company. I think I've tried to spend more time on these school tours and things like that, trying to see what excites the younger generation. I do make a point these days, and we've always kind of competed against the trade industry. You can go be a flat rate car mechanic for just about as much or more than an aircraft mechanic. So I try to point out that most of the jobs we have now, after a few years, or depending on experience and where you go and where you end up at Metro, most of them are a stick-figure, bill now. I mean, in the health insurance, and the thing is, the younger generation, they don't care about retirement. They don't care about the health insurance. They just want the money in their hand at the end of the day. So we're trying to do a little more education on, yes, it's this today, but here's this. And when I talk to a group, I said, look, I have cashed a paycheck every 2 weeks for 43 straight years, okay? With the same company, and see if I can generate some interest in that, okay? And, we're going to have to start educating this younger generation, to say, okay, you can't think about just today. You got to think about tomorrow, next day, and down the line. I was that where I went to PHI the first day. I didn't care about anything except my first $5.25 an hour paycheck. I didn't care about anything. I thought if I would have stayed in the PHI investment program back then, I wouldn't be sitting here today. I'll just tell you that. But, I think we need to do a better job of catering to the person's skills, their interests, of making sure that they understand that this is a full-up career path, and I think that's where we're trying to put some emphasis now.
Yeah, I love that. Financial literacy is difficult to come across in public education for sure, and it does seem to be changing. It seems like more schools are adopting financial literacy programs. Is like you described, Milton. When I went into law enforcement, I kind of fell into the fact that I had a pension and kind of took it for granted. But now, being on the other side of that, very thankful that I have a pension and the things that go with the career that I work for. A lot of young folks don't realize the benefit and value of good healthcare, good deferred comp, all those things that come with a company like Metro and the importance of that. So I 100% agree with you there, and love that conversation as well. With Metro, I've heard a lot of fun stories about how Metro came to be, and the ways you guys have innovated. Can you kind of give us the story of how Metro was created and kind of how you've gotten to where you are now?
I can mention my rough path up to Metro, but again, Metro was started by Mike Stanberry. He had a hydromolecule company. That's where they mix hay and grass seed and fertilizer and spray new right-of-ways. they bought an Enstrom helicopter. Again, his partner bought an Enstrom, keep tracking these contracts down in Baton Rouge. Thank God, the only time I saw that Enstrom was when they're loading it on a trailer to go away. Okay. And then he went to an HAI conference, I guess, back in 81. And in Florida, they were, back in the day, that was 17, 18, 19% interest rates. So the trick was, if you got the paper from the bank to the Federal Reserve before midnight, you got the compounded interest on that day's worth of paper. There was a company in Florida that was using Bell Jet Rangers, just like the old trains used to do, pick up the mail. They'd run a paper up a pole, and the helicopter would come by, pick the paper up, hit all the banks in that area, and then deliver the paper to the Federal Reserve before midnight. Well, the banker in Baton Rouge was using lug trucks and unreliable southern Louisianans to move this paper. And Mike and this banker decided they needed to do that. So he bought the last 3 Hughes 500D models from Bristow out of offshore helicopters that I worked on when I was at Offshore Helicopters. And about the time he got the helicopters to Baton Rouge, the banker got fired. So Mike got stuck with 3 Hughes 500s. He actually went, and this is a long story, and he needs to tell it probably better than I do, but we had these 3 500s. One was flying. When I hired on, I found a friend to buy that helicopter so I would get paid. We're, selling parts off the 2 that were left. He got a contract in Shreveport. He had moved to Shreveport at the time. Got a contract with the hospital and the TV station together. TV station and the hospital paid to take the 500 Tracor out in California, get a door, like a Long Ranger door kit to put in the thing so you could put a litter in. And then we bought it back, and the flight nurse would film the action site, for the TV station, and they come back and land, and somebody come up and swap the tape and the battery out on the camera, or beyond that, Rick would be on the news that evening. So, we did the same thing with the second Hughes 500 down in Alexandria, but those were relatively short-lived EMS programs. But I kind of wonder, we're doing neonatal transport first, long distance moves with that 500, and now we got an H-160 doing the same thing. So wow. It's an amazing, ride. And we actually tried in a previous company, we tried to sell a Gazelle for an EMS helicopter to the University of Mississippi. So, and again, now we moved to D3s and AW169s and 139s and H160s that are doing the same thing. So,
yeah, it's wild. We talk about multi-mission operations a lot. I don't know that I've talked to an operator that's doing multi-mission work, that's doing ENG work mixed with HIMS work. That's
Acadian did that. Acadian lived on that before we took over. Acadian, they lived on that in Lafayette. I mean, that's what they did.
That's wild. That's pretty cool. You guys, again, being innovative and coming up with things that are unique. I love that you guys have developed from that point to where you are now. Did you think when you first started all those years ago with Metro that you'd be with a 160 in your hangar and doing the things that you guys are currently doing?
No. And I think just one kind of philosophy, we've never had a business plan, never had a budget, never had any, I've been blessed in my career to have an owner that trusted whatever, we thought collectively would go, whatever I thought collectively would go. But I think back on that, and the whole growth of the company can be based on one statement. It's, what do you think if ... and just kind of run with that. So it's been, and it's, we just keep, through kind of the tough times and the competition, we just kind of keep paddling the boat, and it'll be okay.
Like I said earlier, I feel like Metro is a household name in helicopter aviation, at least in the U.S. For folks that may not be familiar with Metro, for whatever the reason is, can you talk about your flight operations and then what you guys do in the completion side?
Yeah, we're running 175 helicopters and airplanes. There's about 20 airplanes from old King Airs all the way up. We got the latest Pilatus jet. Is that a TC-27, I think, something like that? We just put that online this month. So there's quite a line of fixed wing that we're involved in. The rest are rotor wing. We have about 20 407s, and the rest are all Airbus products, mainly 135s, 145s. That's the operational side. We'll fly maybe 85,000 hours this year in the fleet.
Whoa.
We own, of course, the main base is here in Shreveport. We have about 300 people here in various capacities. We also own PAC, Paradigm Aviation Corporation, up in Pittsburgh, which is a mini metro. They do a lot of customer work, a lot of our work. And then a couple months ago, we acquired Avionic Solutions in Lafayette, Louisiana. They were doing a lot of work for us on Canadian shirts and different things. We changed their name to Metro Golf, and we added them specifically to start doing law enforcement airplane work. They have fixed wing capability. So they've outgrown, they're a Metro. I love going down there, I love talking to those guys because they're like Metro was 40 years ago. I don't want them to change, but they will. We're looking at taking on, it was the Bell, the hangar that they built for Bell for the 505. It never happened, and then Copter decided they were going to use it, which never happened, that we're trying to get into that facility for Metro Golf and the Canadian operation. So we deliver, between Metro delivers about 27 to 32 completions a year out of our facility. We do work for Air Methods, GMR, PHI. We do all the medium twins for Air Methods, and we're going to start doing the light twins. PAC runs through about 25 or 30 completions a year. And again, Metro Golf is just coming up to speed, so they're going to be really cooking here in the next year or so.
You talked about the law enforcement side on the fixed wing operations. You guys do a lot of completions on the law enforcement side as well, specifically for Texas DPS, which I bring up because, as we're talking now, Texas is going through the devastating floods that have unfortunately claimed a lot of lives. But you've seen Texas DPS machines operating and saving a lot of lives, and it's pretty cool when you trace those machines back to Metro. Yeah. And the completions you guys have done. I think that's one of the neat things about rotorcraft aviation is, everything we're doing is mission based, and there's a purpose in mind.
Right.
And these aircraft are on the floor of your facility. They leave, and you have no idea what they're going to leave and do, but they're going to leave and do some really good stuff, like what you're seeing take place in Texas.
It's fun. The law enforcement side has gone way up over the last 2 years. I mean, I don't know where the money's coming from, but I'm not minding it at all. We do Texas DPS, Oklahoma State Police. We just got a contract with New York State Police for 6 H-145s, B-3s. They're looking at some H-160s. We do a lot of the Florida police work. We did doing 4 for Miami-Dade. So we have fun with that. It's a fun deal.
Talk about the advancements in technology, just in the mission equipment alone. It's been fun to watch that develop.
Yeah.
But for you guys, you guys have had to keep pace with the development and that technology because you guys are, implementing the installation of those and the troubleshooting. Can you talk about how you guys have kept up with some of those requirements over the years?
I can. We do probably 30% of the mission equipment development in-house. We use CNC to do, the customer will request CNC technologies to do some of it. We have them in-house today. But again, the technology changes so fast, and in that equipment, it's amazing. I mean, it's just amazing what they could do now. They could be sitting on the pad, typing in the address, and camera and the search light will salute towards that address. They can stand off 3,000 feet and a mile away and still do everything that you need to do. We a couple times now at Shreveport, when they go out and test fly these things, they run down criminals in Shreveport and try to get the local police to understand that they are real and they're sitting over a city. And, here's a drug deal, here's a bullet shining the laser at the airplanes at the airport landing. And I think our local law enforcement is understanding now that we're real over here. When they get a call, they better listen to it. But really fun for the guys. It's a completely different bunch of personalities when you deal with law enforcement than you do than in the EMS business. They're just a fun group. I mean, they're just fun to be around. They carry guns and stuff, so that's cool too.
That's one of the best parts. Well, I know we're getting short on time. Milton, it's been an honor, a pleasure to talk to you. Really cool to go over the course of your career, and we barely even scratched the surface on all the things that we could pick your brain on. But before we close, Howie, I'll ask you if you have any questions in mind for Milton before we close out.
Yeah, can I come visit? Nice. No, it sounds like an amazing operation, and I mean, 50 years in the business, you've got a lot to offer to everybody, young and old alike. There's nothing that substitutes for actual hands-on experience. So, well done, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure talking with you. I hope we get to meet face to face and
come on,
have more chats.
Anytime. And let me know what that conference is you're talking about. I'm not
absolutely
to me, but one thought to close on. It came to me the other day. Actually, I didn't come up with this, but I came up with it's from the Jimmy Valvano. If you know who that is, ESPN basketball coach and stuff like that. And in his speech, he said, do one thing every day. Do these 3 things every day. Laugh, think, and cry.
It's powerful words to live by, for sure.
Yep. Absolutely.
Well, you'll be a happy man.
That's right.
I believe that.
Thank you for sharing your knowledge. Thank you for your passion for the industry. Again, my opportunity to visit your guys' facility was amazing. Highly recommend folks check it out. If you're looking for place of employment, I would say Metro is the place to be. I'm sure Milton can point folks in the right direction. There's a whole team of folks that stand behind Metro and can get you lined out with great positions. And on top of that, it's a great place to have work done. So if you're looking for completions or anything like that, their work is amazing. So thank you again, Milton, and look forward to seeing you. Are you going to be at AppsCon?
I am not. I'm trying to stay close to home these days, and we got a pretty good team that takes care of all that for me. So
good for you.
The party's late night and all the handshaking. I'm trying to move away from that.
All right. Well, one of these days we'll catch you back down there at Metro, and until then, thank you again, and we'll catch you later.
All right. Good meeting you, Howie.
Good meeting you too, Milton. We'll see you out there.
Stand by for a message after a word from our sponsors.
Thank you to our sponsor, Metro Aviation. Metro Aviation, the world's largest family-owned aeromedical operator, offers comprehensive aircraft services with 140 plus aircraft in over 25 states. The Completion Center installs medical and law enforcement kits and avionics, serving diverse aviation needs including offshore, utility, VIP, and corporate sectors.
Thanks to our sponsor, Airbus. Airbus provides the most efficient helicopter solutions to its customers who serve, protect, and save lives and safely carry passengers in demanding environments. Its civil and military helicopters are flying all over the world, making missions possible. Visit airbus.com for more information.
If you're passionate about rotorcraft maintenance, then be sure to check out Vertical's new Instagram channel, @vertical.mro, sharing all things related to helicopter maintenance, repair, and overhaul. From the latest podcast episodes to conference updates, and even epic photography, Vertical MRO is dedicated to supporting and advancing rotorcraft maintenance, the backbone of our industry. Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Vertical MRO Podcast, brought to you by Vertical HeliCASTS and in partnership with Vertical Magazine. We hope you enjoyed our insightful conversation with Milton Geltz, whose 50-year legacy in aviation continues to inspire. A special thanks to Milton for sharing his journey, expertise, and perspectives on safety, workforce development, and technological advancements shaping the future of rotorcraft maintenance. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Until next time, stay safe, keep innovating, and continue driving excellence in the industry. This is John Gray. Thanks for listening to the Vertical MRO Podcast.